Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to southern and central Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Right now on Indiana Newsdesk, Amtrak says it's preparing for an impending suspension of service on the Hoosier State Rail line. Why some say the state's reluctance to fully fund the rail line is indicative of a bigger problem.
We've been focused first and foremost on roads, so other forms of transportation take a back seat all the way at the back of the bus.
11,000 underground storage tanks are scattered across Indiana. And due to the pressure they're under, they can sometimes leak toxic contaminants into the ground.
If people were drinking the water at levels in the part per billion range, like 1 molecule of gasoline and in the size of a swimming pool almost, that's enough that could cause harm to someone if they drunk it.
Who pays for the cleanup? And what happens if there's no money? Those stories and a look at the week's top headlines right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Hello, I'm Joe Wren and welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. We come to you from Studio 6 of the IU Radio and Television Center in Bloomington. Indiana Newsdesk is the culmination of planning and hard work with not only our staff and crew, but the merger of the WFIU and WTIU newsrooms a few years ago. Tonight we are very excited to bring to you our first ever broadcast of Indiana Newsdesk. The Hoosier State Rail carries about 37,000 people from Indianapolis to Chicago each year, but its future is in jeopardy as the state and Amtrak try to work out a deal to pay for it. As Sarah Whitmire reports, some people are criticizing the state for its lack of investment in alternative forms of transportation.
It's nearly midnight and the Hoosier State is arriving back at downtown's Union Station. It took 5 hours to get here. That's a couple hours longer than it would have taken to drive it, but engineer Bruce Franks says train travel offers a lot of advantages.
I'm 6'4", 300-pound, a lineman-built person, and I took a train. Me and my lady took a train down to California and enjoyed it. I didn't have to worry about driving. I didn't have to be worried about being cramped on an airplane.
4 days a week, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, the train leaves here at 6 a.m. and arrives back about midnight. The route is just shy of 200 miles. If the route were longer, its fate wouldn't be in question. It's only those routes that are less than 750 miles that are losing federal funding. So the state needs to come up with $3 million to cover the cost of the train's annual operating expenses.
There's not a go-to fund necessarily for these types of things, and that's one of the things that we're grappling with in terms of, where are the funds supposed to come from for something like this.
The legislature authorized the State Department of Transportation to spend the money to keep the rail going, but it didn't mandate it.
I think it was an expression of the legislative intent that they wanted this to happen.
But time is running out. Of the 19 states affected by the loss of federal money, Indiana is the only one in the Midwest still negotiating with Amtrak.
I think we have been particularly slow. I think, on all the states' parts, they've had plenty of notice about this.
Here's how the money breaks down. The Hoosier State Line's annual expenses are about $3.87 million. Last year, it carried about 37,000 passengers. If each passenger's ticket cost $24, that translates into ticket revenues totaling just less than $900,000. That means the state would have to kick in about $80 for each passenger's ticket to subsidize it.
We're looking to maximize revenue in order to, help make the service sustainable.
Train ridership is growing and breaking records. One thing nearly everyone can agree upon is if you improve the service and increase the frequency of the trains, more people will ride them and generate more ticket revenue, which in turn will decrease the amount the government needs to pay. But adding a second route or making the trains faster or, say, adding Wi-Fi, it costs money.
The best thing Indiana could do would be to to keep the service and have 2 trains a day each way instead of 1 train. So your investment would go from 3 to say 5 or 6 million. Even with that, it's just such a small percentage of the overall state budget devoted to transportation.
NDOT's budget for the upcoming fiscal year is just more than $2 billion. The state spends about 3% of that on alternative forms of transportation, which includes things such as transit and rail crossings. That's much less than most of Indiana's neighbors.
It's just been the tradition here that we've been focused first and foremost on roads, so other forms of transportation take a back seat all the way at the back of the bus.
We subsidize roads to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Subsidizing passenger rail in order to build our future is a smart move.
Among the things NDOT is considering is possibly raising rates, making the passengers take on more responsibility. NDOT is also working with communities along the route and trying to get them to contribute to the cost of keeping the train going.
We're willing to be part of the pie, just not the whole pie.
Sarah Whitmire joins us now for more on this story. And Sarah, the state commissioned a cost-benefit analysis that was supposed to come out the middle of this month to talk about, do we discontinue, do we improve, or do we just keep it status quo? What are the negotiations right now?
So the report was supposed to come out mid-September, and then they said we might learn more yesterday at a transportation committee meeting in Indianapolis. The meeting was canceled, but we found the report on NDOT's website. And really there weren't a lot of surprises. There were the 6 different options: doing away with the rail, maintaining the status quo, and then 4 different improvement options. And what we learned from the cost-benefit analysis was that the benefits did not outweigh the costs. So of the 4 proposed options, with each one of them it would range between $4 and $10 million that the state would still have to put in, and that doesn't account for another $230 million in infrastructure repairs that they would need to make to the line, just improvements. But the one thing is that the subsidy the state pays would likely go down, according to the cost-benefit analysis, because if they make improvements, more people will ride. So the subsidy would range somewhere between $32 and $42 per passenger instead of the $80.
Sarah, how common is it for states to subsidize rail?
It's very common. There's
Really?
only one rail in the country that's not subsidized. Care to guess?
Oh, I would have to guess East Coast, big city, New York,
that's right.
maybe DC.
Yeah. It's on the Northeast. It's actually a rail between Boston and DC, and that's the only one that doesn't receive any subsidies. But that train is very, very fast, and it also transports a lot of people.
So October 1st is only a few days away. That's this coming Tuesday. Is the rail going to shut down? What's going to happen?
That's a good question. NDOT has said that the date would be more like October 16th, but as long as they're in good faith negotiations by October 1st, then they can continue to negotiate until they reach an agreement. For its part, Amtrak has sent notices to passengers and to employees saying, we are preparing for an impending suspension of service. So we really don't know. I spoke to someone from Amtrak yesterday, and he did describe the negotiations with the state as being very productive, though.
Well, there's a lot more on this feasibility study that we don't have time for right now, but it's all on our website. Is that right?
It is. WTIUnews.org.
Thank you, Sarah, and a lot more to report on, I'm sure, as time goes on. And now we go over to Alex Dierkman with a look at this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. A new poll shows a majority of Hoosiers say using a constitutional amendment to deal with same-sex marriage is the wrong course. Lawmakers must approve the constitutional amendment banning gay marriage next session for it to appear on the ballot next fall. Freedom Indiana, an organization focused on convincing lawmakers to halt the amendment's progress, conducted the poll. If the marriage ban does go before voters, the poll says 46% would oppose it, compared to 43% who would support it. In a statement, Senate President Pro Tem David Long said the internal discussions of his caucus are private and would not comment on the poll. Dozens of GE workers protested layoffs of 160 employees outside the company's Bloomington plant Thursday. GE announced earlier this month it was laying off the employees because of a 30% decline in side-by-side refrigerator sales since 2010.
Promised us that they were going to hire 200 people. Instead, they're letting 160 of us go. They promised You know, they promised basically jobs for our kids if they wanted them. That's not happening.
Protesters want GE to offer retirement to eligible employees. They say that would decrease the layoffs to just 30. In a statement, GE said it was committed to taking care of employees impacted by the layoffs. Greg Zeller is joining 39 other attorneys general in asking the FDA to put tougher restrictions on e-cigarettes. The initiative aims to deter teen use of e-cigarettes and comes only a few weeks after the Center for Disease Control released a study saying 1 in 10 high school students tried an e-cigarette in the last year. That number doubled from 2011 statistics. E-cigarettes are not regulated the same way traditional tobacco is, with no age requirement to purchase them and no restrictions on advertising. The group of attorneys general urged the FDA to meet an October 31st deadline to establish marketing and age restrictions. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among college athletes. As Brandon Smith reports, a task force of athletic trainers, team physicians, and sports psychologists in conjunction with the NCAA are urging colleges and universities to adopt new guidelines to recognize and help student athletes with mental health concerns.
Sports medicine and mental health professionals say student athletes have unique stressors that leave them at risk for mental health issues. Yet seeking help for those concerns still carries a powerful stigma in the athletic community. Will Heininger is a former University of Michigan football player who suffered from depression. He says young athletes need to know that the problems they're struggling with aren't something to be ashamed of.
And my advice would be open up, talk about it. Act like it's a broken wrist or something else that's, a physical ailment that you would go get help for.
Guidelines developed by a task force led by the National Athletic Trainers Association outline ways athletic trainers, team physicians, coaches, and teammates can recognize the signs of psychological concerns and refer those dealing with mental health issues to the right resources. Syracuse University Assistant Director for Sports Medicine Tim Neal, who chairs the task force, says schools and their athletic programs need to act with urgency on the issue.
Concussions is the big topic now. We have far more many athletes seeking help for psychological concerns. Not only are they receptive, they encourage other student athletes to come forward for help.
Neal says the task force also wants to spread the guidelines to the high school level, where many mental health issues can initially develop.
And Martinsville residents are calling for a pedestrian walkway over Highway 37 after a man was hit and killed there last month. The 28-year-old man was trying to cross the 4-lane highway when he was struck by a car. Martinsville's mayor says the city has lodged complaints with the state and has asked for a crosswalk or pedestrian bridge. An Indiana Department of Transportation spokesman says his department is in frequent discussions with people in Martinsville. NDOT is planning for I-69 and what it will be able to accommodate when it replaces Highway 37. Joe?
Thank you very much, Alex. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk, why some contaminated underground tanks sit for years before they are cleaned up. Our State Impact segment takes a look at Indiana's education system. Tonight, more on a possible record jump in Indiana's school voucher enrollment program. And we take a look back at what was making news in September of 1971 in our History Through Headlines segment, coming up next.
It makes me angry and it makes me want to voice it. Frontline provides me with information that makes me think. We have to be informed. I'm going to see truth from a lot of different sides. I trust Frontline. Once I have the truth, I want to communicate that truth. That's where change begins. It's a current that comes through my mind and says, there's a new direction here and we have to move in it.
Frontline.
We can make a difference.
PBS kicks off the weekends with Charlie Rose and America's top newsmakers on his new series, Charlie Rose, The Week.
Some people say, well, Obama was this raving liberal before, now he's, Dick Cheney.
Recap the week's biggest stories and Charlie's best interviews.
You feel there's this incredible synergy between the audience and the performer, and time slows down.
And get a look at the week ahead. Charlie Rose, The Week. Check local listings.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Businesses have long used underground tanks to store all sorts of chemicals, from dry cleaning fluids to industrial solvents to fuels such as gasoline and diesel. 11,000 of them are in use across Indiana, mostly at gas stations. The state requires tank owners to follow a host of regulations. That's because even a relative thimbleful of many tanks' contents can cause extensive pollution. But as Sevilla Man reports, when a property does become contaminated, it sometimes sits for years while the owner and the government wrangle over who should take the next step.
Managing underground tanks lawfully isn't cheap. Bloomington business owner Jeffrey Schofield recently had one removed from a former oil change station he plans to turn into a retail space. It took crews several hours to clean the 4,000-gallon tank before they pulled it out with an excavator. Schofield expects the removal to run him $10,000 to $12,000. That's not including incidentals, like the sidewalk the crew had to saw through.
So there's more money, but still I think we're doing it right. Now it looks like this is going to be a clean, process. Now if they were to have found any contamination, then that's a whole other issue.
It's amazing the amount of stresses those tank systems are under. If you can imagine big cars and trucks rolling over on the concrete, concrete is not so rigid, it flexes. And all that pressure on that system as it moves, ever so small, can lead to leaks in joints and areas of those tank systems.
And leaking chemicals can pollute the soil and groundwater in a big way. They can even generate toxic vapors, which can make people sick.
If people were drinking the water at levels in the part per billion range, like 1 molecule of gasoline and the size of a swimming pool almost, that's enough that could cause harm to someone if they drank it over a period of time.
Federal laws Congress enacted in the 1980s required owners to start upgrading or replacing inadequate underground tanks. In the 1990s, the Environmental Protection Agency introduced more rules, requiring owners to, among other things, clean up any documented spills. Schroer says IDEM has overseen the closure of 40,000 tanks in the past 20 years and cleaned up almost 3/4 of tank-polluted sites. But that still leaves thousands that haven't been cleaned up.
Most of them probably don't represent a risk to anyone, but we don't always know which ones do. That's why we have to investigate them.
And that's where Perry Mullis comes in.
35? Okay.
He's in big trouble with the state. He began his career nearly 60 years ago, buying gas for resale from the Sinclair Oil Corporation. And as of last year, he owned 6 properties with underground tanks IDEM says are out of compliance. Some don't meet current construction standards, and others, the state says, have been improperly maintained. IDEM documented an above-ground leak at Mullis's Morgantown property in 2008. The next year, an agency report showed soil at the station contained petroleum chemicals above the levels it considers safe.
The contamination at a service station is not necessarily and probably not from the tanks and the lines, but rather people pulling in, filling up a tank, overfilling it, a nozzle doesn't kick off. That gasoline goes out on the concrete.
But an IDEM report from 2011 says investigation and cleanup is, quote, imperative because of how close the gas station is to one of Morgantown's 4 municipal water wells.
Maintaining our independent source of water allows us to keep our water bills reasonable for residents. If we have to buy it from Brown County or Princess Lake or one of the suppliers around, then that increases. It could double our water bills for people, and we just can't do that. We have to keep them affordable.
Cleaning up contaminated sites can take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. A fund maintained by the state is supposed to insulate tank owners from extreme costs. Each owner pays $90 per year per tank to the state and receives insurance in exchange. But they still have to meet a deductible, which can run from $20,000 to $30,000.
Isn't it amazing? The big boys are destroying the little people. And the state of Indiana government is helping them by all this nonsensical regulation. The big people can pay that. The little people can't.
Mullis and IDEM are in court trying to sort their problems out, including whether Mullis will pay a nearly $200,000 fine in addition to the cost of the investigation and cleanup.
As we heard, those tank cleanups can be costly, but if they're not cleaned up, sometimes those toxic materials can get into the water supply. It's interesting in that Morgantown's case because IDEM can't spend the department's money to clean it up until it reaches the water supply and then starts, which causes the damage. To talk about this more, Rudy Fields, he's the president of Fields Environmental, joins us. His company removes these tanks. Rudy, how often do you go to a site and find that these tanks are actually leaking into the ground?
At least 50% of the time, I'd say.
50%.
Oftentimes, it's not the tanks, but the associated piping and dispensers and infrastructure associated with the tanks. But sometimes the tanks have corroded out and started leaking.
Why does it get to that point?
Chiefly, I think that I get called in a lot of jobs where the tanks are out of service. And I think that that happens a lot when the finances of an organization go down. They can't afford to close the tanks. The facility sits idle, and then there's time for the tanks to corrode and any number of things. Poor construction, poor installation. Many things can contribute to the leaking, but that's chiefly is the ones I find problematic are ones that are out of service.
At times, I guess it seems like there isn't that rush to get these cleaned or fixed when you think about these contaminants going to the ground. Where's that rush?
Economics. It's always going to be a situation where your property is going to have a certain value. You've got a corner lot's worth $100,000 and you're looking at $20,000 to close it and the possibility of $150,000 worth of problems that you might find. So it's a very scary proposition for people to undertake. And there's the stigma of having a bad property if contamination is known, and a lot of people will just walk away.
What are some of the worst case scenarios that you've seen?
Oh, I spent about $350,000 of someone else's money in Muncie, and the tanks were already gone, and some of the dirt had already been taken out. But it's digging and hauling dirt.
Is there any new technology coming up that will help remediate this in the future?
Technology, there's always somebody coming up with something, but it's mainly variations on themes. The bioremediation, where you increase the biological activity in the ground. You've got bacteria down there that are eating, and you feed them, and they get busy.
All right. Well, thank you very much for offering your perspective on this. Very interesting. We now turn to our state impact education reporter, Kyle Stokes, with news that Indiana's school voucher program could be poised for a record jump in enrollment.
Absolutely. In just its third year in operation, enrollment in the program could double over last year, from 3,900 its first year to 9,100 in its second year to 20,000 school voucher applications. That is public dollars to help some students cover the cost of private school tuition. More likely than not, school choice advocates say your family qualifies for vouchers. The program is one of the country's most inclusive and has become Indiana's calling card with national advocates of education overhaul. The question we're going to hear a lot of, though, and is that we'll hear until we'll get more data on the program in October, is how many of the students applying for the program this year were already attending private schools last year but claimed vouchers this year under the expanded eligibility requirements state lawmakers put into place last session. And one final thing, we want to show you a map that we have on our blog today. It shows only 30 of Indiana's nearly 200 school districts across the state have to compete with charter schools for enrollment. There it is right here. We put it up and you can find it on stateimpactindiana.org. You can see wide swaths of blue and just a couple of concentrations of charter schools, mainly in Gary and in Indianapolis. It shows you that school choice looks a lot more nuanced than sometimes it sounds like here on shows like ours and other people who cover education throughout the state. So take a look at that map on our website, stateimpactindiana.org. Joe.
All right. Thank you very much, Kyle. And now we take a look back to what was making the news in our History Through Headlines segment. The #1 single was Go Away Little Girl by Donny Osmond. Nixon was president. Gas was 36 cents per gallon. And the big news from a September 1971 issue of the Herald Times was about an unprecedented highway construction project. And no, we're not talking about I-69. The headline reads, "Million poured into area Road 37 projects." At the time, the only way to get to Bloomington from the north was from a winding 2-lane road. The report detailed paving the East Side Bypass, creating a West Side Bypass, and widening Indiana 37. The project would improve what was then called killer roads, small crumbling roadways that frustrated commuters with traffic and inconvenience.
It was scary. It really was. It was very windy and heavily traveled. Very few opportunities for passing, and people were in a hurry.
The plan was unprecedented. The project would cost the state close to $20 million and take more than a year to complete. 2 years later, then Governor Otis Bowen cut the ribbon to the 4-lane highway, saying, "Southern Indiana won't be ignored in Indiana's plans for progress." Statewide bridge, road maintenance, and traffic contracts amounted to more than $153 million that year. Now, to put that in perspective, Indiana Department of Transportation officials say the 21-mile segment of the new I-69 that stretches from Bloomington to Martinsville will cost about $394 million. In other words, that one stretch of interstate is more than double the cost of the entire state road projects in 1971. Interesting, huh?
Sure.
And I bet Alex will have more interesting stories next week as well.
Yeah, we have a lot coming up, Joe, including a story about the farm bill, so you'll have to wait for that next week.
Okay. Well, this show ends now, but our work is just beginning as we prepare for next week's program. Please join us then and check in with us throughout the week for more news at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity to southern and central Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.